Looking back at the last 10 years of investments made by Berkshire Hathaway, the most famous fund management company in the world, run by Warren Buffett, it's pretty clear that the worst investment the company made was to continue boosting its position in General Motors, which it has completely liquidated secretly, very quietly, over the past 4 months. So guys, about a week ago, General Motors stock price went down by around 15%, and no one really understood why. I mean, retail investors were thinking, what is this? It doesn't really correlate with anything that's happened. Why has GM stock gone down again? I mean, if it already wasn't beaten down enough, if you'd invested in General Motors 10 years ago, for example, you would be, well, poor, put it that way. But it turns out there was a pretty damn good reason for why GM stock price has gone down. And in fact, it's after news of this has been revealed within the last 24 hours, well, GM stock price has gone down again. And I personally think that sell-offs will continue to happen over the next few weeks. That said, General Motors has kind of let us in on a little secret they've been working on, which I've made another video about. General Motors are trying to kind of keep this on the low down a little bit, pretending they're doing something that they're not doing, but eventually they will have new markets. They're going to send cars to new markets. I've talked about that in a separate video, so I won't let on too much about that in this video. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching The Electric Viking. Welcome to all the new subscribers. Great to see you. Welcome back, everyone else. Now, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who has contributed to the GoFundMe campaign that I started at about the beginning of this year to try and raise funds for my wife's cancer. She was diagnosed with stage 4 colorectal cancer, which was metastasized at the time. It had gone to a few other places around her body. Mostly lymph nodes. There was one spot in the shoulder and some spots in the groin. Recently, we did get some disappointing news. A PET scan came out and it revealed that some of the cancer was detected in liver and lungs as well. So she's doing some new treatment and hoping to go to possibly Johns Hopkins at the end of this year. You guys, some of you have sent me some emails offering accommodation potentially. So that's something we're definitely looking for her, so she can. I won't be able to be there. Obviously, the boys have to go to school here. So she, I just want to say a big thank you, basically, to everyone who has contributed in any way, shape, or form, and also a big thank you to those of you who have offered your help when she goes over to the United States. So, getting to this General Motors sell-off. The reason this sell-off happened was primarily because Warren Buffett has finally dumped General Motors stock. Warren Buffett has owned General Motors stock for a very, very long time. Everyone's been baffled about why he would invest in a company like General Motors when there's this situation, of course, massive disruption. Mary Barra has made a lot of promises. Maybe, who knows, maybe Berkshire Hathaway believed Mary Barra's promises. Maybe Berkshire Hathaway thought she was telling the truth. I mean, I think, in my opinion, once a sucker, once you've been fooled, you fool me once, then, you learn your lesson. But anyway, for some reason, Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, maybe they don't follow the EV industry as much as what we do. But that said, I mean, look, they invested in BYD back in 2008 and they made billions off that investment. Their investment in General Motors is probably one of their worst investments they've made in the history of the company over the last 40 years. And keep in mind, I mean, Berkshire Hathaway have done insanely well. I remember reading a textbook at university, at college. It was an investing textbook, and my favorite chapter was the Berkshire Hathaway chapter because it talked about how they'd made annualized returns of 30%. So if you'd invested, say, $10,000 back in the 70s with Berkshire Hathaway, you'd be a multi-millionaire now. You'd be very, very rich because of their incredible returns. And they beat the industry every single year. There might have been a year or two in the last decade where they haven't, but they've been very successful. So I was always curious, could never really understand why Berkshire Hathaway investing in General Motors. What are they seeing that we're not seeing? Well, it turns out they've learned their lesson the hard way as well. They've sold every single dollar of their position, nearly a $1 billion position. They've dumped the entire lot. It's all gone. I mean, they had a position in, I believe it was June or July of this year, which was $900 million US. It's been completely liquidated. So people are going to hear about this very soon. And maybe confidence in GM is going to be at a low point, especially considering the fact that they're saying that they are slowing down electric vehicle production. They're slowing down battery production, sort of putting things on pause a little bit. The General Motors, the most important electric vehicle for General Motors is clearly the Silverado EV. It's their number one selling vehicle. It's their most important vehicle when it comes to profit. It's their most important vehicle when it comes to their most important car market, which is the United States. The China market is pretty well dead in the water for General Motors. They're losing sales there every single week. But North America is a different story. Toyota, they did take General Motors' crown last year, but GM have well and truly taken that back from Toyota and basically become the leader in North America. North America is very important to General Motors. They really only have two major car markets in the world now. They pulled out of many car markets. They pulled out of Australia. They're coming back though, by the way. They pulled out of Australia. They pretty much pulled out of Europe almost entirely, mostly. So China and North America are their two key markets. But as you can see, their sales are coming down in China. So North America is extremely important. But if General Motors are not putting themselves in position to have an electric pickup truck, which can rival Tesla, which can rival the Ford F-150 Lightning, there's going to be a version 2 coming out. By the time GM get version 1 of the Silverado EV out, there will already be a version 2 of Ford's F-150 Lightning. Then you've got Rivian R1T. That's a good vehicle. You've got other vehicles coming as well. Canoe are bringing out their electric pickup truck. The Bulldog, that thing is, that's probably my favorite electric pickup truck. I may even be able why that is. It's just so practical. It's just awesome. Anyway, it looks weird, but it's awesome. So there's a lot of rivals coming out. General Motors, therefore, no longer looks attractive any way, shape, or form to Berkshire Hathaway. Now, keep in mind, this decision by Berkshire Hathaway was a drastic decision. I mean, context is needed. BYD, Berkshire Hathaway, have sold down approximately 15% of their position in BYD over the past 12 months. Bit by bit by bit by bit. They've made about 15 different sales, different transactions, and just sold down gradually. But how many times do you hear of Berkshire Hathaway dumping $1 billion of stock, their entire position in a company? That is a big, drastic decision even for Berkshire. That's a lot of money. What does that do when you do that within a short space of time? It tanks the stock, as it has done. But Berkshire went, you know what? Let's cut our losses. Sunk cost bias, can't hold on to that anymore. Let's cut our losses. Now, the thing is, Berkshire didn't sell this stock to buy another stock. I mean, you'd think, oh, maybe that's what you'd do. You'd go, if you say Cathy Wood, you'd say, well, I'm going to sell this to buy that. Generally, that's what hedge funds do. But Berkshire didn't even do that. They sold it just to cash out. I mean, they haven't bought anything. They just added to their cash pile. They now have $157 billion in cash. So they went, you know what, GM sucks. Let's just cash out. We're not even buying it to invest in anything else. And what is really drastic is that Berkshire Hathaway actually held a lot more than this in General Motors. It sold 45% of its stake in the previous quarter. So basically, Berkshire has sold its stake in General Motors this year as quickly as it possibly could without completely tanking the stock. In other words, it had nearly $2 billion of GM stock, which I talked about on the channel about 2 years ago. I said I couldn't understand why they were doing this, why they had a big position in General Motors. I basically put the question to the audience. I said, guys, do any of you have any idea what the hell is going on? Why are Berkshire Hathaway, who pay some of the analysts working at Berkshire, they're getting paid millions and millions of dollars every year, a lot more money than I'd ever make. Well, than I make, that's for sure. What on earth are these guys thinking? What are they seeing that I'm not? And I don't think anyone had any idea. Everyone was is equally baffled as I was. Well, like I said, Berkshire eventually came to their senses and dumped it. Now, the interesting thing is here, guys, that Buffett has long been loyal to the Detroit Three. He was known for driving a Cadillac, and I think he still does. In 2012, Berkshire acquired 10 million shares in General Motors. But the firm's stake has grown. It grew since then. But recently, it's, like I said, it's just completely exited its position. Tuesday's filing last week detailed investments that comprised most of Omaha, Nebraska Berkshire's equity portfolio, which totaled $318.6 billion as of the 30th of September. Berkshire actually sold $7 billion of stocks, including some of its big investment in Chevron Mobile and bought just $1.7 billion in the third quarter. So Berkshire has actually dumped a lot of its oil stocks as well, which I couldn't understand either, why they even had those positions in the first place. Anyhow, interestingly here, guys, nearly 50% of Berkshire Hathaway's current portfolio is in Apple. So they have a lot of belief in Apple. The net sales contributed to Berkshire's record cash stake, which is about the same size as its stake in Apple. So it has nearly as much cash basically sitting in the bank as it has in Apple stock, about 150 billion. So guys, what are your thoughts on this? I really think this is an admission here of failure for Berkshire, failure to recognize that disruption was happening. It was happening much quicker than what they realized, and things were changing. And as you can see from GM stock price, it's done nothing. I mean, look at GM stock price back in, well, let's have a look at it 12 years ago. 2011, the stock price was at $38 in 2011. Nearly 13 years later, it's sitting at $27. $27 from $38 nearly 13 years ago. If you include inflation into those numbers, you would have lost a literal boatload of money if you'd invested in General Motors. I really sincerely hope that none of you have, that none of you got burnt that badly, because that's a big beating to take. That's so demoralizing for the average retail investor. For Berkshire, it doesn't really matter. It's not a really big, significant part of their portfolio. But for the average retail investor, the average mum and dad investor who is encouraged by their next door neighbor, General Motors, I'm telling you, they're going to do something. They're going to be big. They're going to regain their glory days. I don't think it's ever going to happen. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching.